The rain hammered down on the cracked pavement of Fort Bragg's backlot, a military base humming with discipline chaos. Private First Class Elena Voss stood rigid in her crisp army uniform, her hazel eyes locked on the horizon where storm clouds churned like her thoughts. At 24, she was the youngest woman in her unit, a mechanic who could strip an engine blindfolded and rebuild it before lunch. But today wasn't about engines. Today, her sergeant's voice cut through the downpour like a blade, ordering her to strip off her uniform in front of the entire motor pool. "You don't deserve to wear it, Voss," he barked, his face red with fury. The accusation? She'd been caught with contraband, a bottle of whiskey stashed in her locker. She hadn't touched it, hadn't even known it was there, but the evidence was damning. The other soldiers stood silent, their boots sinking into the mud, watching her like she was a traitor. Her fingers trembled as they reached for her jacket's buttons. If this grabs you, hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family. We've got more epic tales coming your way. But as Elena's uniform fell to the ground, revealing the ink etched into her skin, the sergeant's smirk vanished. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. There, across her shoulder, was a tattoo, a grinning skull wreathed in barbed wire, the unmistakable mark of the Death Brigade, a legendary and terrifying special forces unit whispered about in military circles. The kind of unit that didn't officially exist, the kind that left bodies in its wake and questions unanswered. The sergeant froze, his eyes wide, and Elena's lips curled into a quiet, dangerous smile. Elena hadn't always been a soldier. Growing up in a crumbling trailer park in West Texas, she'd learned to fight before she could read. Her father was a ghost, her mother a shadow lost to addiction. So Elena raised herself, scraping with boys twice her size and outsmarting anyone who underestimated her. By 16, she was running with a crew of misfits, boosting cars and dodging cops. That life should have ended her. But a chance encounter with a grizzled army recruiter changed everything. He saw something in her, a grit, maybe, or desperation, and offered her a way out. She took it, trading the streets for basic training, where she learned to channel her fire into discipline. But the tattoo? That was a secret she'd buried deep, a relic from a mission she wasn't supposed to survive. The Death Brigade wasn't just a unit, it was a myth. A covert team of elite operatives who handled the jobs too dirty for the books. Elena had been 18 when they recruited her, a prodigy with a knack for infiltration and a heart that didn't flinch. She'd earned that tattoo after a mission in a war-torn corner of the world, one that left her with scars, some visible, some not. When she left the brigade, she swore she'd never speak of it, trading black ops for the steady hum of army life. But the tattoo was a reminder. She wasn't just a soldier, she was a weapon. The sergeant, a bulldog of a man named Hargrove, recovered his composure and stepped closer, his voice slow but venomous. "What the hell is that, Voss? You think some ink makes you special?" He was a career man, 20 years in, with a chip on his shoulder for anyone who didn't bow to his authority. Elena's silence only fueled his rage. "Answer me," he roared, spit flying. The other soldiers shifted uncomfortably, sensing the air thicken with something more than rain. Elena met his gaze, her voice steady but cold. "You don't want to know what it means, Sergeant." Her words weren't a threat, they were a warning. Hargrove scoffed, but his eyes flickered with doubt. He'd heard the rumors about the Death Brigade, stories of operatives who could vanish into shadows and topple regimes before breakfast. He didn't believe half of them, but that tattoo had broken bar. It was too real, too specific. He barked an order for her to report to the commanding officer's quarters, thinking he'd bury her in paperwork and disgrace. But as Elena walked away, her boots splashing through the mud, she knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. In the Co's office, Colonel Margaret Tate sat behind a steel desk, her silver hair pulled tight in a bun, her eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Tate wasn't just a commander, she was a legend, a woman who'd climbed the ranks in a man's world and never let anyone forget it. She'd seen Elena's file spotless, almost too perfecta, and now she studied the young woman standing at attention. "Explain the tattoo, Private," Tate said, her tone neutral but laced with curiosity. Elena hesitated. She'd spent years hiding the truth, blending into the rank and file, but the tattoo was a beacon she couldn't dim. "It's from a unit I served with, ma'am," she said carefully. "Classified." Tate leaned forward, Her fingers stippled. "Nothing's classified from me." The room felt smaller, the air heavy with the weight of secrets. Elena knew she could lie, but Tate's gaze was a lie detector. So she told the truth or enough of it. She spoke of a mission in a desert hellhole, a team of ghosts, a target who'd been untouchable until the Death Brigade came calling. She didn't mention the blood, the screams, or the nightmares that still woke her at 3 a.m. Tate listened, her face unreadable, then dismissed her with a single order: "Keep your head down, Voss, and get that bottle out of your locker." But the bottle wasn't Elena's. She'd known at the moment Hargrove waved it in her face. Someone had planted it, and she had a good guess who. Corporal Derek Malone, a wiry mechanic with a smirk that begged to be punched, had been gunning for her since she arrived. He was Hargrove's golden boy, the kind of soldier who kissed up and kicked down. Elena had outperformed him in every drill, every repair, and he hated her for it. She'd heard him muttering to his buddies, calling her a nobody, a trailer trash wannabe who didn't belong. The whiskey was his movia, a cheap trick to get her discharged. But Malone didn't know who he was messing with. That night, in the barracks, Elena sat on her bunk, her mind racing. She could report him, but proof was thin, and Hargrove would never believe her over his Prot A tilde copyright G8 tilde copyright. No, this called for something else, something the Death Brigade had taught her. Revenge isn't loud, it's surgical. The next morning, the motor pool buzzed with Britannia engines roaring, tools clanging. Elena worked quietly, her hands steady as she rebuilt a Humvee's transmission. Malone was across the bay, laughing too loudly, tossing glances her way. She waited until lunch, when the crew scattered, and slipped into the supply room where Malone kept his personal toolbox. It was a thing of beauty, custom engraved, his pride and joy. She didn't touch it. Instead, she loosened a single bolt on the fuel line of the Humvee he'd been assigned to test drive that afternoon. Not enough to cause a crash, just enough to make it stall, to make him look like a fool in front of Hargrove. By 2 p.m., the plan was in motion. Malone climbed into the Humvee, revved the engine, and drove it straight into a ditch when the fuel line sputtered. Hargrove's bellowing could be heard across the base. Elena kept her head down, her face blank, but inside, she was smiling. The retaliation didn't end there. Malone, humiliated, doubled down. He started spreading rumors of vicious Onaza claiming Elena had been dishonorably discharged from some secret unit, that her tattoo was a fake, a desperate bid for attention. The whispers spread like wildfire, and soon, even her bunkmates were giving her side-eye. Elena didn't care about their opinions, but she cared about her future. A dishonorable discharge would haunt her, close every door she'd fought to open. She needed to end this, and fast. So she did what the Death Brigade had trained her to do. She went on the offensive. Late that night, she hacked into Malone's email on Not Hard for someone who'd once breached a warlord server. She found what she needed: messages between Malone and a buddy off base, bragging about planting the whiskey, laughing about how he'd put that chick in her place. Elena didn't confront him. She didn't need to. She forwarded the emails to Colonel Tate, anonymously, and let the system do the rest. The fallout was swift. By dawn, Malone was called to Tate's office. He emerged paled, his smirk gone, his career in tatters. Hargrove was next, hauled in for failing to verify the evidence against Elena. The colonel didn't play favorites, and she didn't tolerate setups. Elena was cleared, her record pristine again, but the victory felt hollow. The tattoo had saved her, but it had also marked Kira, set her apart in a way she couldn't escape. That night, she stood alone in the motor pool, the rain long gone, the stars sharp above. She traced the skull on her shoulder, remembering the faces of her brigade teammates, most of whom were gone, some dead, some just ghosts like her. She wasn't that girl from the trailer park anymore, but she wasn't just a soldier either. She was something else. Something forged in fire and shadow. The base moved on, as bases do. Malone was reassigned, Hargrove demoted, and Elena kept turning wrenches, her hands steady, her eyes always watching. But the story of the tattoo spread, whispered in mess halls and barracks, growing into legend. Some said she was a hero, others a killer, but no one looked at her the same. Colonel Tate called her in one last time, not to discipline but to offer a choice: stay in the regular army or return to the shadows. where people like her belonged. Elena didn't answer right away. She thought of the desert, the screams, the weight of the tattoo. She thought of the trailer park, the whiskey bottle, the Humvee in the ditch. Then she looked at Tate and said, "I'm done hiding, ma'am." The colonel nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes, and dismissed her. Elena walked out into the dawn, her uniform crisp, her head high. She was Private First Class Elaine of Voss, but she was also the Death Brigade's last survivor, and she was just getting started. So, what did you think of Elena's story? From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop a comment below and let us know. We love hearing from you.